A wide stone corridor connected the rift between the two realms. Pair after pair of torches stretched endlessly into the distance, and the deepest reaches were cast in a forbidden gloom. The style of murals lining both sides of the corridor and the ominous atmosphere made clear that this was Luo Binghe's headquarters in the demon realm. After the rift closed, Luo Binghe slowly released his iron grip on Shen Xingqiu. Shen Xingqiu stood straight and dusted off his sleeves, not saying a word. Neither of them had anything to say. Keeping their eyes straight ahead, they walked, one in front and one behind. Their footsteps made not a breath of sound, and the atmosphere was stiff and cold. The forks in the corridor of the underground palace slowed Luo Binghe by not even a hair's breadth. After a path full of twists and turns, the scene suddenly opened before their eyes. Architecture in the demon realm was mostly entrenched underground in excavated subterranean caves, never exposed to the sun, moon, or stars. This area, however, broke through the ground overhead, allowing sunlight to pierce the interior and lend it quite a bit of life. Upon crossing through the door, Shen Qingqiu found the furnishings and arrangement of the room quite familiar. In fact, it was very similar to the bamboo house on Qingjing Peak. Shen Qingqiu was filled with an inexplicable fury. He really wanted to ask Luo Binghe, "Is there any meaning to this? Arranging the scene and props like we're acting on stage, dumping me in this little pen, pretending like nothing ever happened. Do you want to continue that little domestic play from your dream realm of a loving master and disciple?" Acting pathetic and pitiful one moment to make Shen Qingqiu overflow with sympathy, then slapping him across the face and telling him it was all an act in the next. What was real? What was fake? He wasn't so perceptive that he couldn't see through to Luo Binghe's real thoughts. How much was honest and how much insincere? While Shen Qingqiu brooded to himself, Luo Binghe walked a step closer to him. A few days earlier, Shen Qingqiu couldn't have gotten away from Luo Binghe fast enough, retreating 3 steps for every one he took. Now he didn't want to do that sort of thing anymore. Retreating would make him look too much like a respectable woman kidnapped by a ruffian, too much like affected bashfulness. Even as a dragon swimming in shallow waters or a tiger dropped onto the plains, if he were so shameless as to describe himself as such, he could still scrounge up his last iota of elegant and prudent poser skills, so he wouldn't sink to such a thoroughly unsightly state. But he was inevitably tense, his heart stretched as taut as a bowstring, his fingers curled and his eyelid twitched. And how perceptive Luo Binghe was, he took another step forward. "Shizun, what do you think I'm going to do to you?" "I cannot guess," Shen Qingqiu said sincerely. He would never dare randomly guess at Luo Binghe's intentions ever again. As reality proved over and over, he was light years off the mark every time. Luo Binghe reached out his right hand. Shen Qingqiu didn't move an inch, but his gaze was glued to those fingertips, following their whole trajectory. That hand was slender and unadorned. It didn't look like the hand of a young lord of a demon race who had already taken countless lives, but rather one whose master had been born to pluck strings, his hand to burn incense and bathe in snow. It slid faintly over Shen Qingqiu's cheek, a barely discernible brush against his skin. Then it landed on his throat. Shen Qingqiu didn't know whether he was mistaken, but this hand seemed to press exactly against one of the major arteries of his neck. His throat bobbed imperceptibly. But Luo Binghe pulled his hand away. The next time he opened his mouth, it was impossible to read his emotions. My blood no longer responds to my beckoning. Ah, so when he had touched Shen Qingqiu's skin just now, it had been to probe the suppressed heavenly demon's blood in Shen Qingqiu's body. It looks like in these short few days, Shi Zun had a fortuitous encounter, said Luo Binghe. So, what are you going to do? Shen Qingqiu asked. Make me drink it again? You'll run if you drink it. You'll run if you don't. It's the same either way. I'd prefer not to give Shi Zun another reason to loathe me. In front of others, he had left not a bit of face for Shen Qingqiu, but in private, he suddenly became polite and courteous. There was no concise way to express what Shen Qingqiu felt about this. Shi Zun, please stay here for the time being. If you are willing, you may go wherever you wish within the underground palace. Luo Binghe continued, I have left some people outside, but they will not enter this room. If you want anything, simply summon them. How considerate, said Shen Qingqiu. Luo Binghe fixed his gaze on him for a time, then said, Is there anything you want? Shen Qingqiu said, I can ask for anything? Luo Binghe nodded. In a sudden spate of malice, Shen Qingqiu bluntly said, Then I ask to see you as little as possible. It would be best if I never see you at all. Luo Binghe looked as if he had never expected Shen Qingqiu to make this sort of request. His face paled. At the sight of this, Shen Qingqiu felt a flash of schadenfreude, but at the same time, he also felt a stab of pain, like he had been pricked by a needle. Perhaps it was because, in the past, he had never said anything so scathing and vicious to anyone. The color took a long time to return to Luo Binghe's face. Shi Zun once asked me if I wanted to become strong. When I asked you that question, I believe I also told you that the purpose of becoming strong is to protect, not to blunder and slaughter, said Shen Qingqiu. No, Luo Binghe said in a dull tone. You had it wrong. Not everything Shi Zun taught was correct. Only after becoming the strongest can one keep the people they want to have securely in their palms. I finally understand. Waiting for Shi Zun to come himself won't do. He clenched his fist, forcefully twisting a vicious smile onto his face. So, now that I've caught you, Shi Zun had better not think of escaping ever again. After this devil incarnate exited the scene, Shen Qingqiu pinged the system. Are you there, 2.0? The system provides comprehensive 24-hour support and a user-friendly online service. Comprehensive is enough. Forget about the user-friendly. What are my current point values? B points, 1,330. Successfully removed laden with landmines. Tag from Proud Immortal Demon Way. Unlocked achievement. Quote, rather a lot of things to roast. Unquote. Keep up the good work. We look forward to your next mystery achievement unlock. Satisfaction points, 3,840. Anger points, 1,500. Heartbreak points, 4,500. Continued efforts required. Very good. Through his effort grave digging, This stupidly cliché stallion novel had finally seen some improvement in terms of B points, though the quote, rather a lot of things to roast, unquote, wasn't a favorable evaluation. It was certainly a few ticks above laden with landmines, right? Also, the anger points weren't the heaven-defying value he had feared, though the heartbreak points were high enough that he felt like he had been pricked by another needle. Averting his gaze, Shen Qingqiu said, "With so many satisfaction points, can I, exchange them for something?" "You can exchange them for a system feature upgrade." Shen Qingqiu's mood improved a bit. "Okay, I'll do the upgrade." With a ringing notification sound, the system bashfully began to download the upgrade package. Shen Qingqiu had a thought, then asked, "Right, what's the name of this feature upgrade again?" "System, Small Scenario Pusher, Luxury Edition." Shen Qingqiu decisively jabbed at the cancel button on the download window. "Crap, it's already downloaded and it fucking cost 3,000 satisfaction points. I'm leaving a bad review." As he aggrievedly spammed the system with a laundry list of complaints, Shen Qingqiu began his life under house arrest. Luo Binghe was busy uniting the northern border demons in Mo Beijun's territory, and Sha Hualing seemed to have officially initiated her grand undertaking to backstab her dad, literally. In short, in the near future, Luo Binghe had plenty of enemies to obliterate and allies to rope in. He was likely busy with work that he couldn't extricate himself from, and for that reason, he never showed his face again. Or maybe it was because that first day, a couple of harsh words from Shen Qingqiu had shattered his glass heart upon the ground, and he was too afraid to show his face. Shen Qingqiu tried his best to tear his thoughts away from the latter possibility. Either way, if Luo Binghe continued to leave him alone, wasn't this the exact, quote, days spent idling away to a ripe old age, unquote, lifestyle he had been pursuing this whole time? Furthermore, Luo Binghe didn't act like the characters in the strange novels that Shen Qingqiu's younger sister had liked to read in his previous life. He didn't shackle Shen Qingqiu to the bed with iron chains, blindfolded and gagged, or stripped him naked and beat him or anything. "You'll never be unhappy once you learn to be satisfied with what you have. Might as well just go with the flow." Bullshit! If Shen Qingqiu could honestly comfort himself that way, he'd have shit for brains. He didn't have Stockholm Syndrome. He wouldn't be falling over himself with gratitude at the slightest hint of good treatment. A fortunate lifestyle needs to be built by one's own hands, not acquired by way of charity. Understand? After failing to brainwash himself, Shen Qingqiu's fingers tightened, and a page of the book he was reading tore in his hands. At the same time, a louder sound of cracking bamboo came from outside the window. He lifted the curtains and saw a group of demon servants hurrying about. Poking his head outside, he asked, "What are you doing?" "Master Shen, what brings you outside?" The servant had an extremely enthusiastic and deferential attitude, completely unlike someone speaking to a person under house arrest. He smiled and said, "We're planting bamboo over here." Shen Qingqiu started. "Bamboo?" "Mm-hmm. You should recognize this human realm plant. It's hard to plant here in the demon realm and won't grow properly, but our Lord is determined to cultivate it here, so everyone just has to find a way." Observing the servant's strength and the way he moved, Shen Qingqiu knew he was definitely no ordinary manual laborer. The demons Luo Binghe had recruited from the major demon tribes' fighting forces were doubtless their cream of the crop. To make these martial experts do odd jobs was categorically a waste of resources. And that wasn't even the end of it. For the first 2 days, Shen Qingqiu had neither the mood nor appetite, but on the third day, he lost interest in Inedia and gave a few reserved instructions to, flirted with, the pretty pale and busty demon maid, calling for a meal to be delivered. Before he had taken even 2 bites, he lost the will to continue. The maid tilted her head. "What is it, Master Shen?" she asked with a grin. "Is the flavor not good?" The flavor was good, very good. It was precisely because it was too good, an extremely familiar kind of good, one that Shen Qingqiu hadn't tasted for years, that he could not continue. He put down his chopsticks and asked, "Did you make this, miss?" The maid giggled. "How could that be? I only know how to kill and eat the meat fresh, or wait for it to rot before eating. I don't know these human recipes with all their fire and rice, oil and salt. Far too annoying." Fuck. So this beautiful, clear-voiced demon with her sweet orchid-scented breath was a lover of rotten flesh. Shen Qingqiu could just tell that making this girl clean tables and sweep the floor every day was a profound debasement. He figured that her abilities were probably more suited to slaying her enemies with a set of broad axes as opposed to chopping melons and vegetables, and it was very likely she had once held that exact job. Then who made it? Shen Qingqiu asked flatly. "Aiyo, this I dare not say," said the maid. "My lord would definitely kill me if I did." Dare not say? Would he be somehow unable to taste the truth as long as she didn't? Shen Qingqiu put down the chopsticks, then picked them up again. What was that saying again? Quote, "The hand that has received is hesitant. The mouth that has been fed is weak." In quote. Shen Qingqiu fretted hard over whether, after finishing this meal, he could still self-righteously express dissatisfaction with Luo Binghe. But in the end, the cook was too familiar with Shen Qingqiu's tastes and eating habits, and in the midst of his fretting, he unknowingly managed to clean his plate. The maid cleared the dishes and left with swaying hips, covering a smirk with her hand. Not long after she left, the curtain lifted and a person wobbled their way in. At the sight of this face, a vicious feeling sprang from Shen Qingqiu's gut. Greeting him with a spiritual blast, he yelled, "Aeroplane shooting towards the sky! Fuck you!"